Welcome back to another deep dive in the Gray Heritage series.
Glad to be back.
You know, in our last deep dive, we started exploring the Safavid era, and we were looking for ways to go beyond just, those individual stories we hear.
Yeah.
And really, measure their successes and failures.
Yeah.
Get a more kind of, objective view of history.
Mm-hmm.
And so today, we're going to tackle this kind of intriguing question. Can we actually, quantify history?
That's the question.
What does that reveal about the Safavids?
Yeah.
We're going to find out.
So to understand how we're going to measure the Safavids, we first need to take a little detour.
Ooh, a detour.
I like detours.
Into some fascinating psychology experiments.
Ooh, psychology. I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Okay, so imagine yourself in a room.
Okay.
And an authority figure instructs you to administer electric shocks to someone who answers questions incorrectly.
I don't like where this is going.
And the shocks increase in voltage with each wrong answer.
Oh, no.
Would you go all the way?
I mean, it's easy to say no now.
Yeah. But in that situation, with the pressure and authority figure, it's unsettling to think about.
And that's what Stanley Milgram wanted to figure out with his famous experiment.
Okay.
He wanted to understand obedience to authority, even when it conflicted with personal conscience.
Yeah.
And his results were shocking, pun intended.
I was going to say.
65% of participants went all the way to the highest voltage.
65%? That's a lot higher than I would guessed.
It is pretty high.
So what does this tell us about human behavior?
Oh.
And how does it connect back to history?
It suggests that under certain circumstances, ordinary people can be persuaded to participate in actions they might otherwise consider morally wrong.
Oh, wow.
It's the influence of authority and how powerful it can be.
So if people are so easily swayed by authority, how can we be sure historical accounts are completely accurate?
That is the million-dollar question.
That's what I'm wondering.
The scribes, chroniclers, historians... They're all influenced by the prevailing powers and ideologies of their time.
Right.
So what we perceive as fact could be, to some extent, a product of those influences.
A product of their own biases.
Exactly. It's not necessarily deliberate deception, but rather an inherent bias that shapes how events are recorded and interpreted.
So how do we address that potential for bias?
Right.
How do we gain a more objective understanding of the past?
Well, that's where this quantitative approach comes in.
Okay.
By focusing on measurable data points, we can move beyond the limitations of individual narratives and potentially uncover a clearer and more nuanced picture.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all ties together.
Yeah.
But how do we actually go about, measuring a historical period?
Right.
I mean, we can't exactly travel back in time with a ruler.
Right, you're right. We can't measure history in the same way we measure physical objects.
Yeah.
But what we can do is identify key indicators that reflect different aspects of a society's development.
Okay.
And then we can track those indicators over time.
Okay, so what kind of indicators are we talking about?
So in this case, we're going to analyze the Safavid era through 6 key indicators.
6, okay.
Economy, military power, urban development, culture, diplomacy, and human resources.
So by examining data related to those areas, we can get a sense of, how they flourished or stagnated or declined.
Precisely.
6 indicators. Got it. But what does that actually look like in practice? What kind of data are we analyzing?
So, for example, let's take silk.
Silk.
Yeah, it might seem like an odd choice.
Okay.
But silk production and trade were essential to the Safavid economy.
Interesting. Tell me more about how silk can help us understand the Safavids.
Well, silk production tells a fascinating story. It's not just about the luxury fabric itself, but what it represents. Flourishing silk production suggests a robust economy. Thriving industries from silkworm breeding to weaving to international trade networks.
So it's like a whole ecosystem.
It is.
Built around this one material.
Exactly. And it even sheds light on government revenue and taxation.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm seeing how silk can be a really powerful indicator.
Yeah.
So what does the silk data tell us about the Safavids?
So when we look at the historical records, we can identify 4 distinct periods in Safavid silk production.
4.
And each one reflects different economic trends and conditions.
Let's break down these 4 periods and see what they reveal.
So the first period spans from 1501 to 1588.
Okay.
And this represents the early decades of the Safavid dynasty. During this time, silk exports were relatively low, suggesting a developing economy still finding its footing.
They're just getting started.
Yeah. Then from 1588 to 1629, we see a dramatic shift.
Okay, a shift. What kind of shift?
This coincides with the reign of Shah Abbas.
Ah, Shah Abbas.
Often considered the golden age of the Safavids.
Yeah, he's quite a legendary figure, known for his, ambitious reforms and military successes.
Exactly.
Did his reign have a big impact on silk production?
Absolutely. During his rule, silk exports skyrocketed.
Wow.
Indicating a booming economy and a flourishing trade network.
So it sounds like Shah Abbas really lived up to his reputation.
He did.
Okay, but what happened after his reign? Did this silk-fueled prosperity continue?
Sadly, no. From 1630 to 1690, we observed a decline in silk exports.
Okay.
And while it wasn't a complete collapse, it does suggest a weakening economy.
Okay.
And perhaps a shift in global trade dynamics.
Things are changing.
Things are always changing.
So even golden ages eventually lose their luster.
Unfortunately, that's true.
What about the final period? Did they manage to turn things around?
Well, the fourth period, from 1690 to 1736,
okay,
shows a further decline.
Oh, no.
Silk exports dwindled to their lowest levels.
Okay.
Indicating a significant economic downturn and potential instability within the empire.
So the silk story is painting a pretty clear picture here.
Mm-hmm.
A rise to prosperity under Shah Abbas, followed by a gradual decline.
Right.
But how do we know this wasn't just a fluke with the silk industry?
Right.
Maybe something else was going on.
Well, that's the beauty of this quantitative approach.
Okay.
We don't rely on just one data point.
Okay.
We can cross-reference this silk data with other economic indicators.
Okay.
Like silver coinage.
Silver coinage. How does that fit into this story?
Well, silver was crucial for minting coins in the Safavid era.
Right.
And since Iran didn't have abundant silver mines, they had to import it.
Okay, so if they were importing lots of silver, they needed something valuable to trade in return.
Exactly.
Enter silk.
Enter silk.
I like it. It all ties together.
There's a clear statistical correlation between silk exports and silver coinage.
Okay.
When silk exports were high, the Safavids could import more silver, mint more coins, and stimulate economic growth.
Okay.
And conversely, when silk exports declined, their access to silver decreased, impacting their entire economy.
That's fascinating. It's like putting together pieces of a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Seemingly unrelated bits of information can actually reveal a bigger picture when we connect them.
Exactly. And in this case, both the silk and silver data point toward a similar trend.
I twinned.
A peak during Shah Abbas I's reign, followed by a gradual decline.
Yeah.
This gives us more confidence that we're seeing a genuine historical pattern.
Okay, so we've taken this fascinating detour through psychology to understand how, those individual accounts can be skewed.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing how something like silk can be used to measure a historical period.
Right.
It's amazing what we can learn when we look beyond the traditional narrative.
Absolutely. Yeah. And remember, this is just one piece of the puzzle.
No, there's more.
When we apply the same quantitative methodology to the other 5 indicators, military power, urban development, culture, diplomacy, and human resources, we see a similar pattern emerge.
A pattern. Now, that's what I call historical intrigue.
That's a good one.
Tell me more. What's this pattern telling us about the Safavids?
So each indicator, when analyzed over time, reveals a period of growth and expansion culminating during Shah Abbas I's reign, followed by a gradual decline in the later periods. Okay. It's like watching a firework reach its highest point and then slowly fade away.
Okay, I'm picturing that firework now.
Good.
But why the decline after such a brilliant peak?
Right.
What factors contributed to this downward trend?
Yeah.
Was it internal strife?
Maybe.
External pressures? Or a combination of both?
That's the million-dollar question.
I like it.
And thankfully, it's one we can explore further by delving into the specific data points within each of those 5 indicators.
Okay.
It's like zooming in on specific parts of that firework display to figure out what made each spark ignite and eventually fade.
This is getting good. I am ready to dive into those remaining indicators and see what they reveal.
Let's do it.
But before we do, I just want to remind our listeners why this all matters.
Right.
Why should we care about quantifying the Safavids?
Mm-hmm.
Or any historical period for that matter?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
We're essentially challenging traditional historical narratives by using a more objective, data-driven approach, by quantifying different aspects of the Safavid era. We're gaining a clearer and arguably more accurate understanding of their rise and fall.
Okay.
It's like upgrading from a blurry historical photograph to a high-definition image.
I love that analogy, a high-definition image of history.
Exactly.
And speaking of which, I have a feeling that diving into those other 5 indicators is going to reveal even more surprises about the Safavids.
I have no doubt about it. And that's precisely what we'll be exploring in our next episode.
Ooh.
We'll unravel the mysteries behind those 5 indicators, uncover the factors that contributed to the Safavid decline, and hopefully spark even more curiosity about this fascinating period of history.
Okay, deep divers, mark your calendars. I can't wait for our next deep dive.
Me too.
But until then, stay curious. And remember, for those of you who want to explore the full data set and learn even more, be sure to check out the Gray Heritage Telegram channel.
It's a great resource.
It is. We put a lot of work into it.
A lot of good information there.
So definitely check it out.
It's fascinating how we often focus on the peaks of empires.
Right.
Like the reign of Shah Abbas. But understanding the factors that contribute to their decline can be even more revealing.
Right. It's like trying to solve a historical mystery.
Exactly.
We've seen the evidence of the decline in the silk and silver data, but now we need to examine those other indicators to figure out what really happened.
Right.
Where should we start?
Let's begin with military power.
Okay, military power.
Remember how we discussed that surge in revenue during Shah Abbas I's reign, thanks in part to that booming silk trade? Well, he strategically invested a portion of that wealth in strengthening the Safavid army.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
A strong military is crucial for any empire looking to expand its territory and influence. And Shah Abbas, I was certainly known for his military prowess.
Exactly. He used that military power effectively, repelling the Ottomans in the west and Uzbeks in the east.
Oh, wow.
But he wasn't just relying on brute force, though.
Okay.
He modernized the army, introducing new weaponry and tactics.
So he was really forward-thinking.
Yeah. He even created a corps of elite soldiers.
Oh, wow.
Similar to the Ottoman Janissaries.
He sounds like a real military innovator.
He was very strategic.
So what happened after his reign? Did the Safavid army just lose its edge?
It's not quite that simple.
Okay.
While the army remained relatively large, it started facing some challenges.
Like what?
Well, there were difficulties with recruitment.
Okay.
Possibly due to population decline.
Okay.
Resulting from disease and famine.
Oh, so it's not just about the sheer number of soldiers.
Right.
It's also their quality, their training, their equipment.
Exactly.
It sounds like a combination of factors started to weaken the Safavid military machine.
Precisely. And maintaining a large, well-equipped army requires significant financial resources.
Of course.
And as we saw with the declining silk revenues, the Safavids faced growing economic constraints in the later periods, which likely impacted their ability to support their military at the same level.
That's a good point. It's all connected, isn't it?
It is.
The decline in one area can have ripple effects on other aspects of the empire.
Exactly. And that interconnectedness is key to understanding the complexities of historical change.
Okay.
Now, let's shift our focus to urban development.
Okay, urban development.
We talked earlier about Isfahan
right.
as this grand cosmopolitan city during Shah Abbas's time.
Yeah, Isfahan with its stunning mosques and palaces was really a symbol of a Safavid power and cultural influence.
Right.
It would be interesting to see if that continued
Yeah.
as the empire faced these other challenges.
Well, the pattern we've observed in other areas holds true for urban development as well.
Okay.
Shah Abbas. I invested heavily in urban projects.
Yeah.
Transforming Isfahan into this magnificent capital. Think bustling bazaars, impressive public spaces, and a vibrant cultural life.
I'm picturing...
But in the periods following his reign,
Yeah.
we see a noticeable slowdown in urban development.
I guess that makes sense. If the empire is facing economic constraints and military pressures, grand architectural projects might take a back seat.
Right.
But was this decline just limited to Isfahan, or did it affect other cities as well?
It wasn't just Isfahan.
Okay.
We see a similar trend across other urban centers within the Safavid Empire.
Interesting.
This suggests that the slowdown wasn't just a matter of shifting priorities.
Okay.
It reflects a broader economic downturn and perhaps a diminishing capacity for the kind of ambitious urban planning that characterized Shah Abbas I's reign.
It's almost like the pulse of the empire started to slow down.
Yeah.
Both literally and figuratively.
Yeah, good way to put it.
Okay, so we've looked at military power and urban development. What about culture?
Right.
Did the vibrancy of the Safavid era, known for its art, architecture, and intellectual pursuits, did that fade as well?
Sadly, yeah. The cultural flourishing that was so prominent during Shah Abbas I's time, with its patronage of the arts, the sciences, and literature, experienced a gradual decline. There were still pockets of artistic innovation and intellectual activity,
Right.
but the overall momentum slowed down.
That's kind of sad to hear. It's like the creative energy of the empire started to dwindle. mirroring the decline in other areas. Do you think there's a connection there?
It's hard to say for certain, but I think it's possible that this cultural shift reflects deeper societal changes that were taking place.
Like what?
Perhaps there was a growing sense of disillusionment
Okay.
or a loss of confidence in the ruling elite as the empire faced these mounting challenges.
That's an interesting thought. It's like when we look at art and culture, we're not just seeing pretty pictures and objects.
Right.
We're getting a glimpse into the soul of a society, its hopes, its fears, its anxieties.
Exactly.
Okay. 2 indicators down, 3 to go.
We're getting there.
What can we glean from the Safavids' diplomacy in those later periods? How do they navigate the world stage as their power began to wane?
Remember how we discussed that link between silk trade and diplomacy?
Yes.
Well, as the Safavid economy weakened, their diplomatic influence likely declined as well.
Okay.
They may have struggled to maintain those strong alliances and trade partnerships that were so crucial during Shah Abbas I's reign.
So it's not just about internal factors.
Right.
External pressures and shifting global dynamics also played a role in the Safavid decline.
Absolutely. The world doesn't stand still.
It doesn't.
We can't forget about the rise of new global powers, like the European colonial empires, who were eager to establish their own trade routes and dominance.
So the Safavids may have found themselves increasingly caught between these competing forces.
Exactly.
Wow, it's like that historical tapestry you mentioned earlier is getting even more intricate. So many threads intertwining both internal and external, all contributing to the shifting fortunes of the Safavid Empire.
Exactly. It's a reminder that historical events rarely occur in isolation.
Right.
They're always shaped by a complex web of factors. And untangling that web requires us to consider multiple perspectives and influences.
Okay, we're down to our last indicator, human resources. What can this tell us about the Safavid decline?
This one is crucial.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about the importance of a skilled and educated workforce for a thriving society?
Yes.
Well, in the later periods of the Safavid Empire, they faced challenges in this area.
So it's not just about the raw number of people, but also their skills, their knowledge, their ability to contribute to the economy and society.
Exactly.
I imagine that would have a significant impact.
It did.
Did the Safavids experience what we talked about earlier, like a brain drain?
Potentially, as the empire faced economic decline and other challenges. Opportunities for advancement and prosperity might have dwindled. So skilled individuals seeking better prospects might have migrated to other parts of the empire or even to neighboring regions.
So not only were they facing these external pressures, they were also losing valuable talent from within.
Right.
That's a tough situation to be in.
It is. It's like a vicious cycle.
A vicious cycle. How so?
Economic decline weakens other areas of the empire, leading to a decline in human resources, which further weakens the economy and so on. It becomes incredibly difficult to break free from that downward spiral.
Wow. It's amazing how these 6 seemingly disparate indicators, when examined together, paint such a comprehensive and compelling picture of this Safavid decline. We started with silk and silver, delved into psychology, explored their military might, urban development, culture, diplomacy, and even their human resources.
It's been a journey.
It has been an incredible journey.
It has.
And remember, this quantitative approach to history, while incredibly insightful, is just one lens through which we can view the past.
It is.
It's important to consider other perspectives.
Absolutely.
To delve into the qualitative data. You know, the personal accounts, the artistic expressions, the cultural nuances, to gain a truly holistic understanding.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Data can reveal patterns and trends, but it's the human stories, the individual experiences that bring history to life.
They do.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage our listeners to continue exploring the Safavid era.
Yes.
Delve into those stories, read those accounts, and immerse yourselves in the rich tapestry of their history. You might be surprised by what you discover.
You never know.
Okay, so
keep diving.
Let's keep unraveling this mystery of the Safavid decline. We've already explored how their military might and urban development kind of lost momentum after Shah Abbas. And we saw how even their, vibrant culture started to fade.
Sadly.
But we're not done yet.
Not even close.
You still have 2 indicators to examine. Diplomacy and human resources.
Big ones.
Ready to dive back in.
Absolutely.
All right, so diplomacy it is.
Okay.
We touched on this earlier, linking it to the silk trade.
Yeah.
And we said as their economic power diminished, Their diplomatic clout probably weakened, too. It's like that domino effect, right?
Exactly. The Safavids had skillfully navigated that complex web of international relations during their peak.
Right.
They fostered strong alliances, secured favorable trade agreements, and they really projected an image of power and influence.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, but as their internal challenges mounted, maintaining that diplomatic standing became increasingly difficult.
So they might have struggled to maintain those crucial partnerships.
Right.
That had really benefited them during Shah Abbas's time.
Yeah.
Were there any specific diplomatic shifts or events that really contributed to their decline?
Well, there wasn't one singular event that caused their diplomatic downfall.
Okay.
It was more of a gradual erosion of their influence on the world stage.
They were slipping.
They were slipping a bit, yeah. And they faced increasing pressure from rival empires like the Ottomans to the west, who were eager to exploit any signs of Safavid weakness.
Always waiting in the wings.
Always waiting, yeah, absolutely.
It's like they were losing their bargaining chips.
Yeah.
A weaker economy and military meant fewer resources to leverage.
Yeah, less to bring to the table.
In diplomatic negotiations.
Exactly.
And we can't forget about the rising influence of European powers.
Right.
During this period.
A huge factor.
They were aggressively expanding their global trade networks.
Yeah, they were.
Often at the expense of existing empires like the Safavids.
Right, exactly.
So it wasn't just about the Safavids losing their edge.
Right.
The world around them was changing as well, creating this whole new set of challenges they were perhaps ill-equipped to handle.
Exactly. The geopolitical landscape was transforming. And the Safavids found themselves increasingly caught in the cross-currents of these global shifts. They were no longer the dominant force they once were.
The times they are changing.
They were changing. That's a good one.
It's a good reminder that history isn't static.
Right.
Empires rise and fall. And the reasons are often complex and interconnected.
Absolutely.
Okay, on to our final indicator, human resources.
Okay, the human element.
What role did this play in the Safavid decline?
So remember, a thriving society needs more than just raw manpower.
Right.
It needs skilled individuals.
Yeah.
Artisans, merchants, scholars, administrators.
The thinkers, the doers.
The thinkers, the doers, yeah. People who can contribute to the economy, the government, and cultural life.
Right.
A decline in human resources, either in terms of quality or quantity, can have a significant impact on an empire's overall strength.
Absolutely. And we talked about, the possibility of a brain drain.
Yeah.
Skilled individuals seeking better opportunities elsewhere. Did the Safavids experience this?
It's certainly a possibility.
Okay.
As the empire faced economic decline and other challenges. Opportunities for advancement and prosperity might have dwindled. Yeah. So skilled individuals seeking those better prospects might have migrated to other parts of the empire or even to neighboring regions.
So not only were they facing these external pressures, they were also losing valuable talent from within.
Exactly.
That's a tough situation to be in.
Really tough.
It's like this vicious cycle.
It is, yeah.
How so?
Economic decline weakens other areas of the empire, leading to a decline in human resources, which further weakens the economy and so on.
It just keeps spiraling.
It's a downward spiral.
Wow. It's amazing how these 6 seemingly disparate indicators,
right,
when we examine them together, they paint this comprehensive and really compelling picture of the Safavid decline.
It is pretty amazing.
We started with silk and silver.
Right.
We delved into psychology, explored their military might, urban development, culture, diplomacy, and even their human resources.
It's been quite a journey.
It has been an incredible journey.
It has.
And remember, this quantitative approach to history, while incredibly insightful, is just one lens through which we can view the past.
It is.
It's important to consider other perspectives.
Absolutely.
To delve into the qualitative data, the personal accounts, the artistic expressions, the cultural nuances.
So important.
To gain a truly holistic understanding.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Data can reveal those patterns and trends, but it's those human stories, those individual experiences that really bring history to life.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
I
really encourage our listeners to continue exploring this Safavid era.
Yes, keep learning.
Delve into those stories, read those accounts, immerse yourselves in that rich tapestry of their history. You might be surprised by what you discover.
Absolutely. There's always more to learn.
That's it for this deep dive into the Safavid decline.
Wow.
We've covered a lot of ground, But as always, there's so much more to explore. Join us next time as we continue our journey through history, uncovering those hidden stories and unraveling the mysteries of the past.
I'm looking forward to it.
Until then, stay curious